Study Section 3, Democracy. Introduction. Democracy, which derives from the Greek word demos, or people by definition, means the government by the people, in which the supreme power is bestowed in the people and implemented directly by them or by their voted agents under a free electoral system. In the case of Abraham Lincoln, democracy is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. In this study section, you will learn about democracy, history of democracy, ancient Athenian democracy idea, and modern idea of democracy, direct and indirect democracies, and characteristic features of modern democracy. Learning outcomes for study section 3. After you have studied this study section, you should be able to define the term democracy, discuss the history of democracy. Democracy has become a sort of honorific term that most states claim to be a democratic system. Democracy is a system that has been given any sort of interpretation or that has been given many interpretations. Even an autocratic or totalitarian system of government could claim to be a democratic system. Democracy is a system of government based on the concept of the ruled. In other words, it is a system of government that must be granted on the people in terms of having their own consent through electoral system. This definition is mainly that of liberal democratic system. However, most governments who are not of liberal democratic system will claim that their system has the consent of the people, hence it is democratic. The simpler definition you can have has been provided by Abraham Lincoln that democracy is the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. What this means is that any democratic system must have the people at its base, which means that the people must have willingly given their consent to that government. In other words, the government is not imposed on the people forcefully. If this is the case, then that government is not legitimate, hence it is not a democratic government. The whole idea of democracy started in the ancient Greek city of Athens, and in this city everybody participated in the decision-making process of government except slaves and women who were not allowed to participate. Offices were thrown open to every citizen who resided in the state. The people normally were meeting in an open space called agora, where decisions were taken in a consensual way. Dash has become a sort of honorific term that most states claim to be a democratic system. A. Democracy. B. Politics. C. Philosopher. D. Ancient Greek. A. Democracy. In other words, there was a sort of dialogue among the participants in the agora till a decision would be taken which everybody would have consented to, and the decision was binding on all. Hence, in Greek language, democracy means demokratia, which means the rule of the people. In contemporary time, the idea of democracy has changed because the number of people has become much more increased exponentially. Also, you have vast areas that constitute a country. All these have made it impossible to have that kind of ancient Greek democratic system. Their own form of democracy was a direct one. In the contemporary world, the form of democracy that is practiced is an indirect form of democracy in that you have some people representing others. This is because vast majority of the population and vast expanse of lands have made direct form of democracy that was practiced in the ancient Greek city impossible. In Greek word, democracy means dash, demokratia. In the world today, What obtains in terms of democratic system is liberal democratic system of government. This system is what is practiced in many Western countries like USA, Britain, etc. This form of democracy has certain basic features, but what is of paramount importance is that the whole idea of that democratic system is based on freedom of speech, conscience, assembly. The liberals believe that these freedoms are the most distinguishing features of any democratic system and they should not be compromised. The other basic feature that is of paramount importance is the rule of law. The rule of law upholds the supremacy of the Constitution, which could be either written or unwritten and based on tradition. The other feature of democracy is based on majoritarian rule. It is also based on party system, either two-party or multi-party system. Besides this, the system is also based on periodic elections. That is, having elections periodically every 4, 5, or 6 years. In all these distinguishing features of democratic system, what is of utmost importance is that the consent of the people in the electoral system is what gives the system its legitimacy. However, what can negate democratic system is inequality of power and wealth, and these are what you find in most democratic systems in Western states. History of democracy. When one particular person rules, such a system could be regarded as a monarchy, Greek for rule by one. In a situation when the post can be inherited within a family, it is expected to be given such names as tyranny or dictatorship from Rome when power is held by or granted to an individual member of society. The other extreme is democracy, in which ideally every adult can effect group decisions. Such an egalitarian method is accustomed to anthropologists learning the customs of small tribal groups, but it has been a rarity in more developed societies. Between the two extremes is oligarch. In a sense, all early clashes between oligarchy and democracy are an argument over how many to include in the few, with Democrats pressing for a higher figure than oligarchs can accept. Even in Athens, where cultural democracy starts, only a small part of the community can vote. Athenian democracy, 5th century BC. In the 5th century BC, Athens found an experiment in direct democracy as conflicting to the representative democracy of contemporary societies. It is copied by our Greek associates and colonies at the time, but it has hardly been tried anywhere else since. Switzerland in the 13th century is one example. Democracy of this type has two requirements. The community must be lesser enough for citizens to be capable of joining debates and voting on problems, and its economy must give these citizens enough freedom to involve in politics. In the ancient world, this indicates that there must be slaves to do most of the work. Both situations triumph in Athens. The citizen democrats of Athens are those males over the age of 18 who are sons of an Athenian father after 451 BC. The mother must be Athenian as well. They numbered no more than 50,000 in the whole of Attica. In addition to these citizens, the population includes about 25,000 metoikoi of foreigners trading in Athens, for this is a major commercial center, together with free women and children, and perhaps 200,000 slaves. This gives a total of about 400,000 people. So, the voting citizens form at most 30% of the population. Democracy is accomplished in numerous phases. Through alterations linked with Solon in 594, with the 10 tribes of Cleisthenes in 508 and with Pericles in 462. The People's Army, 6th to 5th century BC. The move in the direction of democracy redirects other modifications in society. In the prehistoric period, throughout Greece, aristocratic families have provided the main fighting force, cavalry. In the 7th century, the Greek city-states create the new military idea of the heavily armed infantryman, the hoplite. A remorseless phalanx of hoplites becomes as dynamic on the field as the tank in current times. These soldiers create their own weapons and armor, but this is costly. Several of the Greek oligarchies, including that of Athens in the 6th century, reveal the power of this middle class of citizens. The poorer citizens of a Greek state, unable to pay for armor, can only serve in the army as light infantry, useful in a skirmish but moderately insignificant on the battlefields of the day. A tactical alteration of direction by Athens early in the 5th century offers these poorer citizens a new power. The military strength is averted into building up an Athenian navy. Triremes, the first warships of the time, need men to row them. However, every citizen has a role to play, and the crews of a fleet of warships have a self-evident political power. A more radical democracy, introduced by Pericles in 462, is almost an unavoidable result. The mechanism of Athenian democracy, 5th century BC. The system which performs in the mid-5th century includes citizens in government in a diversity of ways. Each one has a voice in the utmost forum of the nation, the ecclesia or assembly, which sees 4 times a month on the Pnyx, a flat-topped hill in Athens. On key occasions, with essential matters to be decided, as many as 5,000 citizens attend. It is not easy to gather a large crowd. Scythian slaves are much in indication at the beginning of each meeting, tightening a long red dyed rope to net any nearby loiterers. In about 400 BC, pay is introduced for attendance to reward for loss of working time. Any national may answer the representative's question, who is willing to speak, but addressing such a huge crowd in the open here is hard. Most of the discussion is carried on by regular speakers, in effect, the leading politicians who are known as rhetorists, orators, in brackets. The business of the day is secured by another body of 500 members, known as the bowl or council. Here, the principle of amateurism is more firmly developed, for the members are chosen by drawing lots. 50 are chosen at village stage by each of the 10 tribes, which make available the Athenian society. The standard of choosing by lot is done even further in the Council of 500. Each member functions for a month as one of the 50 presidents, who is in charge of the administration of the city. Therefore, the chairman of the bowl reforms every day, again chosen by lot from the 50 presidents. So, almost each councillor is efficiently head of state for one day of the year. Non-specialization can barely be done further, but the Athenians do have the mutual sense to use election without any time boundary for the most essential posts. Wealth and power can vitiate democracy. Discuss this in relationship to modern-day liberal democratic system. Summary for study section 3. In this study section 3, you have learned that 1. Democracy is a system of government based on the concept of the ruled. In other words, It is a system of government that must be grounded on the people in terms of having their own consent through electoral system. 2. When one particular person rules, such a system could be regarded as a monarchy, Greek for rule by one, in a situation when the post can be inherited within a family. It is expected to be given such names as tyranny or dictatorship from Rome, when power is held by or granted to an individual member of society. 3. What makes democracy a confused idea is that it is now embraced by every part of this political spectrum, and as such, every political ideal claims it. The idea of modern democracy is different from that of the ancient Athenian Greek city-state, where direct democracy was practiced. 4. There are certain distinguishing features of modern democracy like rule of law, consent of the people, two-party system, etc. This is the end of study section 3. Thanks for listening.